In the previous video, we explained how the Linux file system is structured. Now it's time to go hands-on. In this guide, we'll walk through the most useful Linux terminal commands, the ones you'll actually use as a beginner. You'll learn how to navigate, create, manage, and interact with your system, all from the command line. Let's get started. First, you should get familiar with the terminal. The terminal, also called the command line, is a text-based interface that lets you interact with your system by typing commands instead of clicking around. It runs a shell, which is a program that interprets your commands. The most common one is called bash, and that's what most Linux systems use by default. When you open the terminal, you'll see something like this. This line is called the prompt. It shows your username, in this case Bob, the name of your machine, here is Linux, your current folder, here represented by the tilde symbol signifying your home directory, and ends with a $sign, which means you're using a regular user account. The terminal is a powerful tool, and in many cases, it's necessary. Some tasks simply don't have a graphical alternative, especially when working with servers or minimal installations where no graphical user interface is available at all. Let's start with a simple but essential command, pwd, which stands for print working directory. When you type pwd, you'll get an output like this. This tells you exactly where you are in the system, helpful when navigating folders or writing scripts. You'll rarely need any additional options, but pwd-p can show the physical path if symbolic links are involved. Next we have ls. ls stands for list, and it's one of the most commonly used Linux commands because it shows you the contents of a directory. When you type ls by itself, it lists all visible files and folders in your current directory, helping you quickly see what's there. However, not all files are visible by default. Linux treats files and folders that start with a dot as hidden. To see these hidden files, you use the -a option like this, ls-a. This will display everything, including configuration files or system files that are usually hidden to keep the view clean. Another important flag is -l, which stands for long listing format. Running ls-l shows detailed information for each item, including permissions, ownership, file size, and the last modification date. This gives you much more context about the files than just their names. You can even combine these flags, for example, ls-la or ls-al to get a detailed list of all files, both visible and hidden. Besides listing files in your current directory, you can also use ls to look inside any folder by adding the folder name after the command. For example, ls documents will show the contents of the documents folder inside your current directory. You can also specify full or relative paths, like ls/etc to list system files or ls...... to look in the parent folder. Now let's take a look at cd. cd stands for change directory, and it's used to move between folders in the terminal. For example, cd documents takes you into the documents folder if it exists in your current location. You can go up one level using cd..., where the double dot represents the parent directory, the folder that contains your current one. To return to your home directory, you can use cd with a tilde, or just type cd with no arguments. You can also move through multiple levels at once, like cd documents/project, or use absolute paths, such as cd/home/alex/pictures, to go directly to a specific location from the root. The cd command is essential for navigating the Linux file system, and it works hand-in-hand with commands like ls and pwd to help you understand where you are and move around efficiently. Moving on, we have clear. Clear is a simple but helpful command that clears the terminal screen. It doesn't delete anything. It just moves all the previous output out of view, giving you a clean space to work in. This can be useful when your terminal gets cluttered after running many commands. Just type clear and press enter, and your terminal will look fresh again. Now let's take a look at command history. History shows a list of commands you've recently run in the terminal. Each one is numbered, making it easy to look back at what you've done. For example, if command number 102 was ls, you can run it again by typing !102, a quick way to repeat a command without retyping it. You can also use the up and down arrow keys on your keyboard to scroll through your recent commands one at a time. This is especially helpful when you're experimenting or fixing typos, since you can just bring back the last command, edit it slightly, and run it again. Now let's talk about creating and editing files and folders. The touch command is the simplest way to create a new, empty file. For example, running touch notes.txt instantly creates a blank file named notes.txt in your current directory. If the file already exists, touch simply updates its last modified time without changing its contents. It's especially useful when setting up files to edit later or when writing scripts that need to check if a file exists. You can even create multiple files at once using a single command. Now that we've seen how to create files, let's create a folder too. The mkdir command stands for make directory, and it's used to create new folders. For example, mkdir projects will create a folder named projects in your current directory. You can also create multiple folders at once by listing them, like mkdir folder 1, folder 2. If you want to create a nested folder structure, like a folder inside another that doesn't exist yet, use the -p option. For example, mkdir-p work/2025/reports will create the entire path, even if the parent folders don't already exist. Now that we've created some files, let's see how to edit them. One of the easiest ways to edit text files in the terminal is with the nano command. Just type nano followed by the file you want to edit, and it will open that file in a simple, text-based editor right inside the terminal. If the file doesn't exist yet, nano will create it for you. The interface is straightforward. You can type freely, and the shortcut keys are listed at the bottom of the screen. For example, use Ctrl-O to save and Ctrl-X to exit. This makes nano a great starting point for beginners who want to modify files without needing a graphical editor. If you're ready for something more powerful than nano, there's Vim. Vim is a highly advanced and flexible text editor built into most Linux systems. It works entirely from the terminal and supports things like syntax highlighting, search, and macros. To open a file, simply type Vim and your file name. But be aware that Vim has a steeper learning curve than nano. It has different modes. You're in normal mode by default, and you need to press I to enter insert mode so you can start typing. To save and exit, press escape, and then type :WQ and press enter. If you're new, it might feel confusing at first, but once you learn it, Vim can be incredibly fast and powerful. Next, let's explore how to view files in the terminal. The cat command is the simplest. Short for concatenate, cat prints the entire contents of a file directly in the terminal. For example, cat notes.txt will show everything inside that file at once. But if the file is long, it can scroll off the screen. That's where less comes in. It opens the file in a scrollable view, letting you move up and down using the arrow keys. Just type less notes.txt and press Q to quit when you're done. Sometimes you only need part of a file. The head command shows the first 10 lines of a given file, while tail shows the last 10. The default is 10, but if you want more or fewer lines, you can specify the exact number of lines you want to display, like this. These tools make it easy to read and navigate files right from the terminal. Next, let's take a look at two simple but useful commands. The echo command is used to display text or variables in the terminal. For example, echo hello world will print that exact message. It's often used in scripts or configuration files to show status messages or variable values. The whoami command is even simpler. It tells you which user you're currently logged in as. Just type whoami, and it will return something like Alex or root. This is especially useful when you're switching between users or running commands with sudo. Now let's check more commands for quick system information. The uname command tells you the name of the system's kernel. For most Linux machines, it simply returns Linux. If you want more detail, uname-a gives a full overview, including the kernel version, machine architecture, and system name. It's a quick way to check what kind of system you're working with. The uptime command shows how long the system has been running since the last reboot. It also tells you the current time, number of users logged in, and the system's load average, which is a rough indicator of how busy the system is. Now let's move on to copying files and folders. The cp command lets you make a copy of a file. For example, here we're copying file.txt to a new file called backup.txt. You can also copy a file into a folder, like copying notes.txt into the documents directory. To copy entire folders with all their contents, you'll need the -r flag, which stands for recursive. Here, we're copying the whole project's folder into backup. Adding -v shows which files are being copied, which is helpful for tracking what's happening, and the -i option will ask before overriding anything, giving you a chance to confirm. As you can see, the cp command has many different usages and can be fairly versatile. Now let's take a look at how to move or rename files using the mv command. In its most common form, mv moves a file from one location to another, for example, placing a document into a different folder. But if you use it with two file names, it simply renames the file instead. Just like with cp, the -v option shows you exactly what was moved, and -i gives you a warning before overwriting an existing file, helping prevent accidental changes. Whether you're organizing your files or renaming them to stay consistent, mv is a simple but essential tool for managing content from the command line. Now let's talk about how to delete files and folders. The rm command is used to delete files, for example, removing a file like notes.txt permanently. There's no recycle bin or undo here, so it's important to be cautious. If you want to delete an empty folder, you can use the rmdir command instead. But when you need to remove a folder that contains files, you'll have to add the r flag to rm, which again stands for recursive. Like with cp and mv, you have the -v option which will show you what's being removed and -i, which will ask for confirmation before deleting each file, a helpful safeguard. On the other hand, the F flag skips these warnings entirely. It stands for force, and it's useful when deleting write-protected files or scripting automated cleanups. But it should be used with care and caution, especially when combined with R. Now let's quickly talk about sudo. Sudo stands for superuser-do, and it lets you temporarily run commands with administrator privileges. For example, if you try to list the contents of the root directory, you'll need to use sudo ls/root, or you'll get a permission denied message. When using sudo, you'll usually be asked for your password to confirm. The same applies when creating or deleting files in protected system folders like etc. That's where commands like these come in. Just remember, since sudo gives you elevated access, even small mistakes can affect the system, so use it with care. Now let's talk about permissions. Earlier, when talking about the ls command, we saw strings like these. These are permission settings, and these letters tell us who can read, write, or execute a file. The chmod command changes permissions. For example, chmod plus x script.sh makes a script executable. You can also assign permissions numerically, like chmod 644 exam.txt, which means the owner can read and write, while others can only read. Similarly, you can do the same for folders too. On the other hand, ownership changes are done with chown. This command is usually used together with sudo. For example, sudo chown alex report.txt assigns ownership to user Alex. You can also change the owner and group together, like sudo chown bob devs project, which sets Bob as the owner and devs as the group. While a bit rarer, these commands are very useful when working with multi-user environments. Now let's talk about searching through files and folders. The find command lets you search files and folders using specific criteria. Its basic structure is the following, and it tells it where to search and what to look for. For example, find.name notes.txt looks for a file with that exact name in the current folder and all subfolders. In case you're wondering, the dot symbolizes the current directory. If a match is found, find returns its path. If nothing matches, it simply returns nothing at all. To ignore capitalization, you can use uname. You can also search for files modified recently with mtime. For example, this line returns all files and folders that have been modified in the last 7 days. You can also limit your search to just directories using type D, and if you need to search for files only, you can use type F. And to find large files, there is the size option. For example, this line returns anything over 10 megabytes. As you can see, with just a few options, find becomes a powerful way to quickly locate exactly what you need, especially in deep or messy folder structures. Now let's discuss a similar command, locate. Unlike find, the locate command uses a pre-built index to search your system, which makes it incredibly fast. You can search for files just by name, like locate notes.txt, and it instantly returns matching paths. To ignore capitalization, add I, as in locate-i readme.md. You can also limit how many results you want to see using the n option. For example, locate *.html-n20 shows just the first 20 matches. In that command, The asterisk is a wildcard and it matches anything. So asterisk.html means find all files that end with .html. And if you only want the number of matches, the C flag counts results, like in locate-c.conf. Keep in mind, because locate relies on an index, it may not include very recent files. To refresh the database, you can run sudo update db, which will refresh the indexes. Unlike find, which searches in real time, locate is much faster, but it may miss newly created files if the database isn't up to date. Up next we have grep. The grep command lets you search for specific words or patterns inside files, perfect for quickly filtering through logs or documents. In this example, grep alex tasks.txt returns the lines from the file that contain the word Alex. If you want to see where exactly those matches occur, you can add the in option to show line numbers, making it easier to locate or edit the right part of the file later. There's also the I option, which makes the search case insensitive, useful if you're not sure about the exact capitalization. And when you need to search through an entire folder of files, -r lets you search recursively. For example, grep-r error logs checks every file inside the logs directory and shows you which files contain the word error, along with the matching lines. This is especially helpful when scanning log files for issues or debugging problems across multiple files. Now let's take a quick look at how to check disk space and usage in Linux. The df command, short for disk-free, shows an overview of how much space is available and used across your mounted file systems. When you add the H option, the sizes are shown in a human-readable format, like gigabytes or megabytes. On the other hand, DU stands for disk usage and is used to check how much space a specific folder takes up. The command du-sh tilde/downloads shows just the total size of the downloads folder. -s summarizes the result, and -h makes it easier to read. Together, these two commands help you keep track of your system's storage, both overall and in specific locations. Let's now take a look at monitoring your system in real time. The top command, short for table of processes, displays a live overview of running tasks, CPU and memory usage, and system load. Each row shows a different process, along with its process ID, how much CPU and memory it's using, the command that launched it, and more. You can press Q to exit at any time. And if you'd like a more user-friendly and colorful version of this tool, there's also htop, which can be installed separately. Now let's look at psaux, a command used to view running processes. It shows useful details like who started the process, its process ID, how much CPU or memory it's using, and the command that launched it. The AUX part is just a common combination of options to display all processes for all users, including background ones. You can also run the ps command alone, or use it with options like U for getting processes of a specific user. Unlike top, which updates live, psaux gives you a one-time snapshot of all running processes. Let's now look at apt, the package manager used to install and update software on Debian-based systems like Ubuntu. You'll often start with sudo apt update to refresh the list of available packages, followed by sudo apt upgrade to install the latest versions of your software. To add new programs, use sudo apt install, followed by the package name, like htop for example. And if you no longer need a program, sudo apt remove will uninstall it. There's also sudo apt auto remove, which helps clean up and use dependencies and keep your system tidy. As a regular user, you'll use these commands most often when installing new tools or keeping your system up to date. If you're ever unsure how a command works, Linux has built-in help tools to guide you. The man command opens the full manual page for a command, including its usage, options, and detailed descriptions. It's like the official documentation. To exit a manual page, just press Q. But if you prefer a quicker overview, you can use the help flag with most commands to get a short summary of available options right in the terminal. Think of man as a detailed manual, and help as a quick reference guide. These two tools are especially helpful when you're exploring new commands or need a quick reminder, and you should definitely be familiar with them. Now let's talk about alias. Aliases let you create shortcuts for longer commands, making your workflow faster and easier. For example, you can type alias ll equals ls-l to shorten the long listing command. Once set, using ll runs ls-l automatically. The alias command by itself shows all defined shortcuts, like for example ll, gs, or cls. To remove one, use unalias followed by the name. Keep in mind, aliases created this way are temporary and only last for the current session. To make them permanent, add them to your .bashrc or .zshrc file and reload the file by restarting the terminal or running this command. With alias, you can save a lot of time when dealing with longer and more complex commands, so it's good to know it. Up next, we have wget. The wget command lets you download files directly from the internet using the terminal. In its simplest form, you just provide the link, for example, downloading a PDF manual from a website. You can also rename the file while downloading it by using the O option, like saving a file as notes.txt. And if you're downloading something large, you can add B to run the download in the background. In that case, the progress is saved to a file called wgetlog, which you can check at any time. After downloading, the files will appear in your current directory, ready to use. And lastly, let's talk about tar. The tar command is commonly used in Linux to archive and compress files and folders. For example, this command takes the entire project's folder and compresses it into a tar.gzip file. You can later extract it using tar-xcf, or just view its contents without extracting with tar-tf. Each option in the command has a specific meaning, like C for create, X for extract, T for list contents, Z for gzip compression, and F for specifying the file name. By combining these options, you can easily compress and extract files and folders as needed. This makes tar an essential tool for backups, packaging, and sharing files efficiently. In conclusion, mastering these essential Linux commands can make a big difference in how efficiently you use the terminal. Whether you're navigating files, managing processes, or searching through your system, these tools give you control and flexibility across nearly any Linux distribution. While this isn't an exhaustive list, it gives you a solid foundation, and there are many more useful commands out there. When you come across a new one, try searching it online or use man or help to learn what it does. That wraps up our walkthrough of essential Linux terminal commands. If you found this video useful, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. Check out our other videos to explore more tech fundamentals and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more updates. Thank you for watching.